Hi, my name is Alvin Lin, and I'll be Team 12's representative for our Gilbane Gold Ethics presentation. My team members are Brandon Kim, Chris Johnson, and Tyler Wolfe. So for a brief summary on the background of our case. So this case takes place in the town of Gilbane, who has a very lucrative source of revenue from selling its sewage sludge as fertilizer called Gilbane's Gold. Also, the local authorities have passed very stringent laws to limit toxic heavy metal emissions into the sewage, and this is to protect the public safety of the fertilizer as well as protect their source of revenue. Also, it should be noted that heavy metal waste is permanent and will eventually render a plot of land too polluted to be farmed, as well as poisoning the food grown on it. Any companies doing business within Gilbane must submit a test data to ensure their compliance with the local regulations, and it must be signed off by an engineer within the company. And this is very important to note for our case. Gilbane attracted several high-tech companies with tax advantages before passing these very stringent laws, and one of which is Z Corp, a computer component manufacturing company, and they will be the company that we follow for this case. So for a brief summary for the problems that arises. So it was found that Z Corp has recently been releasing emissions slightly above the allowable amount that the regulations have stated. And this is due to utilizing an old test method, which is very inaccurate and lacks sensitivity. And this is confirmed by utilizing a new, expensive, and more accurate test method. Also, Z Corp is running on a very thin financial margins and thus can't afford to purchase new expensive equipment that will resolve this problem. Also, they will be increasing production by 500%, which will be a significant increase in waste emissions and will almost certainly threaten the public health of the local environment as well as the citizens. It's also important to point out several regulation loopholes that are present as of right now. So the old inaccurate testing method that is actually specified by the local regulations, the one that was utilized at first by Z Corp. And it's important to know that this can be utilized to cover Z Corp's current above average emissions. Also, the law currently states that a company must inform the authorities of the amount of toxic material for a given volume of sewage discharge, not necessarily the overall amount of waste. This is important because this can be utilized by Z Corp in the future to cover their significantly increased emissions due to increasing production by 500%. Also, Tom Richards, a senior environmental engineer at Z Corp, was recently fired for pointing this out. And we will be following David Jackson, a junior environmental engineer at Z Corp, who was recently promoted to Tom Richards' position, and we'll be following what he does and what his decisions was at the very end. And he will also be the engineer that will be signing off on any document that pertains to the test data. So as for ethics code violations, to the right you see a table, and this contains all violations present in this case. So that includes subsections and sections, as you can see in this table right here. So Z Corp had many violations within this case, and we'll be separating them into three main categories. The first category is attempting to coerce David into signing off on faulty test documents and avoiding alerting the authorities, even if they still technically follow the regulations and the law set forth. And all these sections and subsections mentioned below here all pertain to misinformation or signing off on documents that aren't necessarily true, right, and are fraudulent. Also, the second category is promoting David, an inexperienced junior engineer, into Tom's position. And these subsections and sections here pertain to putting an engineer that isn't necessarily qualified or had no experience for an assignment and placing them into that assignment and place of responsibility. The third category is the company's reluctance to tackle the above allowable emissions problem and the willingness to be fraudulent. And these subsections and sections below here pertain to, putting the public safety and putting the public above any other concerns. And these are the sections and subsections that mostly pertain to that. And all the violations that Z Corp has committed go against the code under section 3.1, which is honor and integrity. As for ethics code violations for David, it could be argued that by secretly reporting on Z Corp's violations, he violates commitments to his company, right? And these are all the sections and subsections that pertain to that talk about an engineer's loyalty and commitment to his company and employer. However, the ethics code does mention that an engineer must place ethical and safety points over loyalty to their employer, and it's mentioned many, many times under all these sections and subsections, as you can see right here. So as for Team 12's perspective, as we've seen before, Dave did ultimately out the company by whistleblowing to local news. And we do believe that David ultimately took the right course of action. However, he could have done many things differently. So he didn't attempt to find an inexpensive solution to the problem at all from the case. And he did attempt to convince the company president, Diana, to notify the local officials to explain the company's situation, especially with its thin margins. And it was unlikely that Z Corp was the only company being financially squeezed by these very strict regulations. And he could have convinced her to try and notify and talk to other company leaders to help them with their negotiations and to change the laws, perhaps. And also, it should be noted that being upfront with the local authorities will create an atmosphere of trust between the local authorities and Z Corp and will increase the chances of a successful negotiation. Although, if all else fails, you should have notified the proper authorities instead of reporting to the local news network. And also, we do believe that blame shouldn't simply be placed on Z Corp, but on Z Corp and the Gilbane authorities as well. What's the reason for this, right? We believe that town authorities if they were more open about their local interests, especially with the sewage, creating fertilizer from the sewage sludge, and it being a very lucrative source of income for the local community, or if they had the foresight to eventually see the passing of such strict laws to protect this very valuable source of income, this situation may have never happened, or it would have been far less likely that it would have happened. And as for Z Corp, its unwillingness to resolve the above allowable levels of waste emissions, regardless of the reasoning, and its willingness to falsify test data, even if it's technically allowed by the current regulations, would have endangered public safety and showcased a lack of integrity and honesty, which we believe that all other ethical violations showcased by Z Corp stem from. And thank you very much. This is Team 12's presentation on Gilbane Gold's ethical case. Thank you.